Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Thoughts from the Round Table. I'm Jacob.
And I'm Pierce.
Today we're talking about, we're putting on our film coin assessor berets.
I like how you said beret and not hat, because it's more classy.
Yeah,
way.
that's why I was doing that.
I get it. I'm glad I explained the joke.
Thanks. You ruined it.
In case anyone didn't get it.
No, we're talking about Mank. It's snobby.
That's about all we can say.
I'm really excited to talk about this. Way more excited than you are.
That's true. I want to clarify something to any of the listeners out there. This is Mank, spelled M-A-N-K. It's about the life of Henry Menkewicz. I did not realize this for probably 2 weeks, thinking in my head that it was M-E-N-K, and that was just a film dick's way of maybe some sort of French for good movie.
No. Let's just get right into this.
Yeah.
So I want to talk a little bit first about kind of what this movie's about. I'm not going to go too much into the plot because, I'm not going to lie, it's a little confusing. You're better off just watching the movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's based about writing Citizen Kane, which we've both seen. It's really good. Obviously, it's considered one of the best movies ever,
If not the best movie ever.
Yeah, it's really good.
I mean, I can't say that I would say it's the best movie
Me
ever.
either.
But I could consider it maybe top 20 for sure.
It's a classic of cinema.
Yeah.
Every film nerd has seen it. It's got some cool themes, some Rosebud stuff.
Definitely not Donald Trump.
Yeah, no, it is. It's actually shocking. We're already off topic, but we were talking the other day about how we used to think how history never repeated itself, and history repeats itself, and we're in a simulation.
Yeah. If you guys watched it, I almost think Donald Trump must have been watching Citizen Kane and just taking notes.
It inspired him.
He's like, holy shit.
It's
I could do this.
It's like that interview with Elon,
Mm-hmm.
where they're asking him about the former NASA guys, and he starts crying. He's like, they inspired you to do this, didn't they? It's like someone's talking to Trump, and he's like, Citizen Kane inspired you to do this, didn't he? He's crying.
He's just weeping on set.
Yeah, anyway, so there's this weird history behind it, who really wrote it? Should Herman Menkewicz get the credit?
I'm sorry, I said Henry earlier. It is Herman.
I didn't even notice you said Henry.
I said him. I actually, real quick, sorry to get off topic again. I just want to make everybody clear. I asked Jacob specifically before recording this podcast. I said, it's Henry Menkewicz, right?
I don't think I said anything.
You did. You said, yep.
I might as well. I was kind of tired.
Yeah.
I'm still kind of tired, but anyway.
Okay, go on. Sorry.
It's in black and white. That's one of the most important parts of the movie, I would say. Well, I want to talk about that for sure.
Mm-hmm.
That's an important thing to me, and it's going to be interesting to talk about because there's problems with it. There's also some things I like. It's framed the same way that Citizen Kane is. We'll talk a little bit about that. Yeah, I liked it. I just want to, let's talk about, did you like it?
Here's the thing. Is a weird word for me. When I was watching this movie, I hated it. It was not an enjoyable experience to me. And I'll explain why when Jacob gives his points, because I think me and him fundamentally disagree on certain aspects of this film, and that's totally fine. After reflection, I have come to the conclusion that this movie was fine. It was good. There was some good parts to it. I think my problem lies with how it was created and why it's almost definitely going to win awards. And that's because it emulated the way that films were made back in the day. It emulated Citizen Kane. And at first, I thought that was a cool idea, and I really liked it. And then I realized that that is exactly the only reason why this movie has value in the eyes of critics. Not because of the acting, not because of the story, maybe because of the sound, because it had a banging soundtrack, but mostly because of how it was shot, and I almost think it's lazy.
Yeah, so I think that the points you brought up are such fair points, right? If you don't like the old Hollywood system, which you shouldn't, right? You're probably not going to like this movie. But hey, this movie was literally made for awards. So if you can look beyond that, that's kind of that's part of the reason I liked it, you know? But I do have some dislikes too before I say my likes. You said some of yours. I know you're going to you're going to agree with some of my dislikes. I said we're going to talk about black and white. Let's just talk about it.
Okay.
Now, before I trash black and white in the modern era, I think that you can do it well. And I think it's hard to do well. A perfect example, a movie we both cherish deep in our hearts, is The Lighthouse.
Indeed.
It's shot on a 1:1 aspect ratio.
Mm-hmm.
It's grainy. It's old-fashioned looking. And it's beautiful. Like, I know that a lot of people like that movie for the reasons that I don't. That movie makes me laugh, but the cinematography is awesome. It is
fantastic.
It's so good. So anyway, this movie didn't have that. It looked like black and white, and it was shot in an 8K camera. 8K, black and white. Your whole thing is we're going to imitate old-fashioned stuff. Don't make it the clearest picture you can get.
That's what threw me off. It's like they slapped a black and white filter on Premiere on it, you know? And it didn't feel like black and white used to feel.
Yeah.
And I think that is an important point that we need to talk about, and why I said lazy, because I want to make this perfectly clear. Shooting back how they shot in the day is the opposite of lazy. That is a lot of hard work, way harder than now. Shooting like we do now and slapping a black and white filter on, that's lazy.
Yeah, I agree with that. But not all the cinematography was lazy, in my opinion. I think they should have done an old-fashioned camera. That's just me. It'd be cool. Do it on a studio. Make it grainy, etc. The one scene that I think the reason that they probably didn't do that was because of the scene where they had the person at MGM. I think it was at MGM.
Yeah.
The guy, and he was walking, and they did this huge walk back shot.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. I can't talk about how cool that shot was and how great that monologue was. But the rest of the cinematography, in my opinion, was garbage.
I don't know if I would say garbage. It was just uninspired. There was that one shot, and I know what you're talking about, and it was really good.
It's awesome.
You can tell when a movie's cinematography is inspired. You know, you can tell when the director and the DOP got together and they had their little like brain orgy, and they're like, let's vomit just art onto the screen. When the camera tells a story, it's a magical thing in a movie. And usually, the vast majority of movies don't hit this. It's
True.
usually like, oh, well, I mean, I see it, but there's nothing special. And this movie had that one spot, but other than that, I just thought it was average.
Yeah, and so David Fincher did this. I'm kind of a David Fincher guy, pretty much for Social Network. And that's one movie where I think him and his DOP were clicking. I probably should have looked and see if they had the same DOP. But Social Network has the director of photography did such a good job because they made it interesting to look at cameras or look at computer screens, which is impossible. And then they just, I don't know, just didn't do it for me in this one. But it can make or break film or TV series, because I'm watching Euphoria right now. Some of the best DOP and shots I've ever seen in TV or movie. It's so good. It's the only reason I'm watching it. Yeah, it makes or breaks a movie. It ruined it for I shouldn't say it ruined it for me, because I still did like the movie. It threw me off though.
I don't know. Yeah, ruin isn't the right word, but it didn't enhance. And that's my main problem with this, is because people are going to say, because it slapped a black and white filter on, because this is what critics always say, and it's what pisses me off about a black and white and why I don't like it. As a rule of thumb, slapping a black and white filter on a movie does not make it artsy.
Right.
It doesn't. You got it. Black and white can enhance a movie. We talked about The Lighthouse. It's a perfect example because it does. That movie would not be the same in color.
Right.
It wouldn't. This movie would. It might have been better.
Yeah, I agree.
There's also, I want to talk about this because it's, I don't, we're going to do a podcast next. Our next podcast, I think, is going to be on the little things.
Yes.
Either that or Monkey movie. Either way, I want to talk about this because we just saw this movie and I'm going to talk about it a lot in that podcast, but I want to briefly mention it. There are ways in which directors and DOPs are trying to emulate the film grain present in those old analog cameras, primarily by raising the ISO to a ridiculous level on their camera, their ISO settings. If you know cameras, you know what I'm talking about. It creates a grainier look. That movie that we saw, The Little Things, that had a very, very grainy look. If you slapped a black and white filter on that movie, it would almost emulate an analog camera. Why didn't they just do that?
I don't know. I honestly don't. It didn't make any sense to me. I understand directors have creative control. I just think he missed on this one.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm not saying, like, no director makes a perfect movie every time, but this definitely wasn't one of them. And if you looked at the Oscars, you'd think it's an incredible movie because, like we said, it's made for it. I want to talk about something that shouldn't win an Oscar, but it might, and that's the screenwriting for this.
Mm-hmm.
Every part about this movie, just, they took the story and they said, how can we make this like Citizen Kane? So they chopped it up in weird bits, just like Citizen Kane did. They had a parable, in a sense, something that meant another thing. You know, the parable of the organ grinder's monkey in this movie is the rosebud.
Yeah.
Because it has another meaning. It shows what the movie's actually about, etc., etc., etc. It just feels lazy to me, right? And again, I liked the story. I do. I think it was actually interesting. You know, I think there was stuff there to write about, but it just felt lazy to copy it off Citizen Kane.
I think, yeah, I don't see a lot of people talking about this, and I know we're just huge Star Wars fans, but I think a perfect example is Episode 7 and Episode 4. Except that wasn't an Oscars movie. So
Yeah.
people talked about it. And people said, hey, this is the same plot recycled. Like, it's good because Episode 4 was good.
And it's another story.
Yeah. But like, and this is true, but it is very similar. And there is a fine line between copying and what's the word I'm looking for? Paying homage to.
Mm-hmm.
And this bordered that line.
Yeah, really
I'm
close.
Not gonna say it crossed,
Because I actually don't think it did cross.
but
I think
it
it
got
was
too close for comfort.
Yeah, it was just original enough where you don't question it. But it was written by David Fincher's dad, and his dad passed away. And David Fincher's been trying to make this movie forever. And he finally got it made. And yeah, I guess his dad wrote the script a while ago, and it's just it just seems lazy to me. I understand the whole point of this movie is to copy Citizen Kane. This is the whole point. Just think of an original thought. That's what I'm saying.
And I'm fine with that. If you make a movie and your goal is to copy Citizen Kane, I get it. It shouldn't win an award that Citizen Kane won.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like if you re-release Citizen Kane with the exact same script, just in modern cameras and a recast actors, and then like best screenplay wins again.
Yeah.
Like, why? You know?
That'd be
like
pretty cool.
this guy already got an award, move on.
And it really does suck that we're not, I mean, Oscars are still 2 months away. They're in April now. They used to be, around February, but they got pushed forward because of the C word.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's the Golden Globes. They released theirs, and Mank is leading for the nominations.
On how many?
6.
Oh my God.
So this might be a little awkward and choppy because we're probably going to have to cut some as I try and figure how to read this. But I know Gary Oldman definitely got one for Best Actor. David Fincher got one for Best Director, which as you can tell, I don't think he's deserving of. It's nominated for Best Motion Picture, which is, I don't know, a little questionable. I saw a couple movies that I think should be on there. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have to read them all, but I do know it got Best Score, which I think is the only one it deserves. This was the best score. I want to spend some time talking about this because, in my humble opinion, this is just some guy who may listen to an absurd amount of movie scores. A gross amount, some might say. It was my favorite of the year.
I don't see anything that could top it.
Yeah, it was by some cool guys. David or something and Atticus Finch. I don't remember his first name. It felt like it belonged in the movie. It added to it. I know that it's a pretty easy year because not as many movies were released as they should have been. But if Tenet wins, I'll riot.
This soundtrack transports you to like working on a film set in old Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
It really does.
It does. It's so good.
It's almost magical in that sense. Like it sends you back. And the point that you realize is, I don't know, a good movie soundtrack is like a second watch. You start getting it because the first watch, you're just immersed in it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was that way. I know you mentioned it when we watched it, but I started listening to it on Spotify the day after, and I was like, holy shit, this is awesome.
Yeah, which I don't, if Tenet wins best soundtrack, I'll knee someone's face in.
Tenet was the laziest sound work I've seen in a movie in a long time.
I have a feeling this podcast is going to take a quick turn. Namely, we're going to talk a little bit about the Academy.
Yeah.
Pretty much when we were planning, I guess you could say if we planned podcasts at all. We were planning this out. We're going to talk about the movie for a little bit, but really we want to talk about the Academy. Right? So let's talk about it. First things first. I have a quick note to directors that don't listen to this.
Mm-hmm.
So one day if I'm famous
yeah,
and friends with directors and they come back and look and say, hey, ass cheeks, this was really rude. I'm going to say it. Don't make movies just to win Oscars. I'm sick of it. Just make a movie. If you want to make something creative that the Oscars will like, good, fine, great. Don't make one just to win awards. Parasite, right? Cleaned up last year. I watched it. I really, really, really enjoyed it. I really did. I don't think it was made for Oscars. I think it was made because he wanted to make a good movie. I can't say the same for Mank. David Fincher, he stood on this, said, Academy Awards are stupid. I'm an underground guy. I do Fight Club. I do Seven. I do Social Network. I don't win that many Oscars, but I like making movies. Mm-hmm. But you know what? I'll make a movie to win some Oscars. I'm not shallow. Fuck you.
It's just so uninspired, especially now that the Oscars have just lost my interest. To a point, I'm not. Let me clarify that I am going to be watching the Oscars, and I'm going to watch every movie nominated for Best Picture at least. Mm-hmm. But the Oscars really fucks with me because it added a bunch of requirements for what makes a movie Oscars worthy. Most of these requirements, I agree, should be just a general rule of thumb for making a movie, just being a good person.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, and I'm ready to die on this hill, diversity quotas don't mean good movies. They don't. I think that's when I started thinking, man, are the Oscars really about good movies or are they about something different? And I don't know. The Academy just weirds me out on a lot of issues. I don't think directors should make movies just for Oscars. I think that's uninspired, and I think that they shouldn't win if they do.
I agree. So my prime example of this would be a movie that I think a lot of people like, a lot of laymen like, as we consider ourselves, not to be too snobby when it comes to movies. Trial of Chicago 7 is probably my favorite movie I saw in 2020. I think it should win Best Picture. I think it actually should clean up a lot of categories. The only problem is that one, people are starting to kind of lose some love for Aaron Sorkin because he believes in this world where we can all be happy if everyone's polite. People don't like that. I do. So that's pretty cool. It's part of the reason I like that movie a lot. Also, they say it feels hollow or whatever, and Aaron Sorkin can't write women, which they don't like that. Which is, I actually think is a fair complaint, but I don't think it should stop him from getting an Oscar in a movie that was so good.
And that's kind of what I was talking about, because how much of what you just said is actually about the movie?
Like none.
None. It's about Aaron Sorkin. A director shouldn't. It shouldn't matter. Their political beliefs, their ability to write, blah, blah, blah. It shouldn't matter. It shouldn't. It should have no bearing. The Academy should look at a movie and say, is this movie good? If so, nice.
Yeah.
They can't be like, oh, well, I disagree with this guy politically, so no best actor for him.
Right. This is I kind of watched a video essay. I'll actually I think Pierce's turn to upload, so I might have him link this.
Yeah, I'll link it. This
video essay I watched about the death of objective film criticism. And this really interests me because I kind of like to write. I found I kind of like to write about movies. So this actually was like hit a chord, struck a chord with me. Black Panther was nominated for an Oscar. It was a fine movie. But a lot of the critics, like it had 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. And if you look through the reviews, a lot of critics talked about the movie itself was fine, but it's what it means is what makes it important and what makes it such a good movie. So it's an okay movie. It shouldn't have any bearing the fact that it was the first African American to star in a Marvel movie. I think it's great. I don't want people this to get misconstrued and say that I don't think Black Panther should exist, because I do. I liked the movie. It wasn't even the best Marvel movie released that year. I have a problem with you putting your political agenda over the fact that it's a good movie, which is what I first thought when Parasite won a bunch of Oscars, because it is about class inequality. And, I don't want to be generalizing here, but the Oscars want to come off as woke. Not only is it class inequality, it's done by an Asian director. Fine. But when I watched the movie, it didn't feel hollow. It didn't feel like that's the reason it should have won. It's actually just a bomb movie. Black Panther did not have the same effect for me.
Let me ask you this question, right? And I've been thinking about this a lot. Should the Oscars add a new category? Best message.
I think
best overall meaning. Or something like that.
I think that's better. I just think objective film criticism is dead.
Oh, I totally agree with that. What I'm just saying is, I don't even know if that would help.
I think it would. Like, I just hope that would open up the best picture category to go back to the best picture, not the best meaning.
Because I want to make this perfectly clear, right? So that no one can misconstrue
this.
We
can't get canceled.
We are not, by any stretch of the imagination, saying that we hate diversity in movies.
Yeah.
We hate movies with a good message.
Yeah. We actually... You go ahead. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt.
No, you're fine. I'm just saying, I think that Black Panther, just like I talked about on the Wonder Woman podcast, is one of the most important Marvel movies that has ever been released. I do. Because as much as people hate to say this, you do identify with superheroes. Why did I identify with Peter Parker as a kid? Because he was a nerd and he looked like me.
Mm-hmm.
That's important to kids.
Yeah.
So to have that for a black, for a Black Panther, a black audience, is incredibly important, and I think it's wonderful. That should have no bearing on its Best Picture status.
Right. And yeah, like Pierce said, we're not trying to hate on diversity. Probably my second favorite movie this year was The Personal History of David Copperfield. We kind of saw it on a whim one Friday afternoon/night, and I would say that's diversity done right. because it didn't really matter about the race, right?
Mm-hmm.
The best character or the best actor was chose for the role. Kind of took like a Hamilton casting method. It was great. It was great.
It was so good.
Right? But is it going to do the same if there's quotas? Like, I'm not saying that it's going to get worse, but wouldn't you just want it to naturally come out?
I think that's why I have a problem with the quotas. Is if there's like a checklist, it feels more shallow.
Yeah.
You know, like if I have to have this and I have to have this. So, let me cast this. Let me write this character in for the express purpose of winning an award. That's shallow filmmaking. You should say, I'm going to write this gay character in because this story is important and I care about it.
Mm-hmm.
Not because, well, I didn't really need one, but, I wanted an Oscar, so I might as well just throw in a gay side character.
Yeah.
That's gross to me.
I agree. And that's going to be a problem because people are going to do that because people like getting awards.
Forced diversity is never good.
No.
Never. Diversity is good.
Always.
Always. Yes, exactly. It kills me that people like misconstrue that argument
Mm-hmm.
and will say, well, you're racist.
Yeah.
Because that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that when you start forcing it, then you get stories that don't mean anything. Here's an example. If any of you have watched the CW show The Arrow, there is a character named Curtis in The Arrow. This character was made for the express purpose of being gay. It sucked. It sucked ass. His only characteristic was that he's black and he's gay. That's lame. That's not a real human. Real people are so much more than their race or their sexuality.
Yeah.
And when you write a character in that is entirely their race or their sexuality, it feels shallow and it's counterproductive. Because you know what that does? You know what that does for racists and homophobes? It gives them a catalyst to which to cast their anger on.
Yeah.
And say, oh, well, did you see this character? It sucked because he was gay. And you can hardly argue because you're like, oh, well, I mean, that character did suck.
Yeah.
But then you get a character that has real worth. Example, I think season 1 of The Umbrella Academy, Klaus. I'm just using these two shows because they're similar in tone. Klaus in that was a gay character, almost the same as Curtis, but it had a very distinct difference, and that was that he was more than his sexuality, and no one could hate him for it. Because he was so much more as a character.
Mm-hmm.
He was like a real person that you could identify with that had struggles other than the fact that he's gay. And that is what made him a powerful character and someone that I think is better to relate to for people.
Yeah, so I'm watching Euphoria. If anyone's seen Euphoria, they will understand that they don't have a similar tone to either of those shows. But they do have characters with some differences, right? There's a transgender main character, and it actually doesn't feel forced at all. I think it's actually really well written, and if you write a compelling story, people are going to watch and not care. So just write a compelling story. Don't be lazy.
There's your key word, and I think that's where we're going to tie it back into Mank, because Mank had an amazing story to tell.
Yeah,
it did. The story of Herman Menkewicz is awesome.
It's cool. It's cool. And I like to write. It was cool. He's a writer. To see, like, essentially a master of the craft. Citizen Kane is truly, no one's going to argue if you said Citizen Kane's the best written movie ever. It's so good. But the writing behind the writing of Citizen Kane seems lazy.
And that's, I think, my main problem with this movie. And it's the fact that it's just almost sad. Because of the potential that this movie had. it's not that the movie itself was bad, necessarily. It's just that it wasn't amazing. And with a story as rich and as amazing as the story of Herman Menkewicz, it's astounding to me that the movie wasn't just that.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous because they had it. They had a great plot. And just because of certain little lazy kinks and clunks, it felt shallow. And it's going to win anyways.
It's going to win so many awards. Shout out to every other movie that was tried to be released this year. Have fun winning nothing.
Yeah. There's a lot of movies. Honestly, an impressive amount of good movies this year.
Yeah.
Despite the circumstances, we had a pretty decent year for movies. Not the best by a lot.
And we haven't seen all of them either. Like, there's still some to come out. Nomadland looks good. Excited to see it. Still coming out.
And we haven't even, and I mean, me and Jacob haven't even seen all the ones that are out that are amazing.
True.
We've only seen like a handful. And it's just sad because I'm sure some of those had really creative stuff. But because they slapped old Hollywood and they put it in black and white, the Academy says, let me just eat this shit up.
It's like the blue button, the meme format of the blue button, and it's like the Academy. Anything with old Hollywood.
They're so romanticized of old Hollywood. And that's what, you know what's weird to me? Is they romanticize that period in movie history to an incredible amount. And yet they're still trying to be woke and act like that wasn't the worst time ever. For, like, women, especially.
And, war. So, yeah, with that, thanks for joining us. I think we're talking about The Little Things next time. Real excited for that movie. I found out a lot of people didn't like that movie.
Really?
Yeah.
That's going to be fun to talk about.
Jared Leto got nominated. I don't know if he deserved it, but he did. He was good in it.
Yeah, I think we're going to see a lot of like odd nominations this year.
Because not a lot of things happened.
And I don't know, I hope it has a chance for some of these smaller actors who would never get nominated if big movies came out to have a chance. I know they won't, but to at least be nominated. Hey, I'm glad Jared Leto's nominated.
Win in Rome, baby.
Win in Rome.
Yeah, thanks for stopping by.
Quick announcement that we were going to talk about. Me and Jacob are going to take a bit and actually look at some statistics. On what's doing better, what's going on with it. If you're still listening this far and you want to send suggestions for how to update the podcast, how to make it better, anything like that, go onto our YouTube, leave a comment, send us a DM. Doesn't matter to me, but there might be a couple minor changes in the way things are done, but just a heads up.
There's a new regime around here. That's from The Sopranos.
Yeah, I figured.
Alrighty. Thanks for stopping by. Look at the links below if you're interested. If not, I don't really care.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.